Look, we'll start with PSG. With PSG, you know what I mean? They added that new player. What was his name?
Kvaratskhelia.
That's it. So they added him, and that changed the whole dynamic of the team.
Literally.
That changed the whole dynamic of the team. But I feel like the problem is Dembele needs to realize that you can't show up to a game and give us flair and cook one night and then come to the next game and trip over cords, right? A player that doesn't know whether he's left or right footed is kind of a worry to me. Yo, welcome back to Mental Boys FC, where football meets culture, where it meets two African Aussie lads who have known the script since day one.
Big facts. Big facts indeed. We're going to talk about the Champions League semi-finalists. 4 clubs made it to the finals, and out of the 4 clubs, 3 of them finished in the top 4
Yeah, they did.
of the league phase. But one of them finished out of the top 4, which we'll talk about it later on. So look, it's going to be a cracker.
No, it's
gonna be a cracker,
man. But before we even get to them predictions, we have to rewind the sauce, you know what I mean? Mix it up a little bit and figure out how did these teams get to the semi-finals.
Facts indeed. The league phase told the story already, and today we're going to check it out.
Oh, let's check that story, man.
Barcelona finished second. The league phase was kind of cruising for Barcelona, even though they lost their first game. And by the way, I don't know if you remember this, Argentina lost their first game in the World Cup. I'm just saying, side note.
I see your connection. All right.
Barcelona, tactically and technically, they're very gifted. You got Hansi Flick on this side. This manager has won a sextuple. That's how you say it. Won 6 trophies for Bayern Munich. And I feel like he could do some magic in the Champions League. He's first in the league, in the final of the Copa del Rey.
Yep.
And I think the Champions League will be there.
Just a little cherry of the icing on top.
That's the one. That's the one. Arsenal, on the other hand, look, Arsenal have been on the rise.
Oh, they have.
Since Arteta took over Arsenal, they've just been climbing and climbing, finishing second in the league. I think it's like 3 seasons in a row, including this one. They're definitely going to finish second. But even in the Champions League, they finished, what, third?
Third.
I feel like Arsenal, they're the underdogs. But the fact that they beat Madrid, you can no longer call them the underdogs.
Man.
They've forfeited the league. I feel like the Champions League is where they're focusing everything on.
It's the meat.
So I feel like they got to look out for them. And then you got Inter Milan finishing 4th.
Oh, them stallions. Them Italian stallions, man.
They're like the Italian machines, balanced on both sides of the field, attack, defense. They defend like no one's business. It reminds me of Atletico Madrid, but Atletico are out. And their attack is not great, but it's enough. And it gets them through games. They could win a game 1-0, and that would be enough for them. They just defend. So, look, you can't overlook them.
You can't. Not
and
them
then you
Italians,
got
boys.
PSG finishing out of the top 4, out of the top 8.
Yeah.
Finishing 15th.
Crazy.
And I feel like that kind of tells a story as well, which is why we'll talk about this in the, we'll talk about the investing Arsenal. So look, it's going to be a classic.
Man, look, it's going to be a deadly thing, but let's jump into these predictions. You know what I mean? Let's start off with Barcelona and Inter Milan. Now, the thing is, Inter Milan are no joke. They are no joke. They have got the defense. They have got the experience. And even though when you watch their games, it may be a bit boring. Like you said, they might just go the one goal and park the rest of the game and just get that W. But that's what they're aiming for, the W. And this is why I personally think Inter Milan is very dangerous. What is your take?
My say is Barcelona, when you look at last season and this season, 2 different teams. Same players, 2 different teams.
That's very true.
They're well drilled. They're structured. You know what they're going to do, but you can't stop them. They got a very high line, which a lot of pundits were predicting, someone is going to break through. And there have been a couple of teams here and there who have. But when they put it on, switch it on, it's very hard to stop them. They'll score 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 goals in a game if they literally switch it on.
That's the thing, man. You guys are dangerous.
It's hard to stop them because when you're trying to score against them, that's when you open yourself up. So you have to defend. And when you're defending, we can find a way through. And it reminds me of especially the Barca versus Inter one, reminds me of the Barca versus Atletico one. I don't know if you watched La Liga, if you watched the Copa del Rey, but Barca have already versed Atletico in the Copa del Rey and they beat them 5-4 in aggregate. And look, the first leg, it was a bit scrappy. The second leg, they managed to get a 1-0 in that game. So it tells me that Barca can defend if they want to defend.
That's very...
But also, it's hard for them to not score. Yeah. So with that said, I feel like Barcelona will finish the game on aggregate 4-2.
4-2. That is a good score.
4-2. I feel like it's going to be
prediction.
2-0 in the first leg and 2-2 at the San Siro. Because obviously, if Inter want to come back in that game, they'll open themselves up. Barca will score 2 goals, but I feel like Inter will end up scoring 2 as well. So in the end, 4-2 Barcelona.
Man, that is quite interesting, man.
But now, let's look at the Arsenal versus PSG.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting one. Like I said, PSG finishing 15th, Arsenal finishing 3rd. I think we can already see the difference in teams, but they've literally changed since the beginning of this year, losing to Arsenal and all that stuff. You tell us more about this.
Look, we'll start with PSG. They added that new player. What was his name?
Kvaratskhelia.
That's it. So they added him and that changed the whole dynamic of the team.
Literally.
That changed the whole dynamic of the team. But I feel like the problem is Dembele needs to realize that you can't show up to a game and give us flair and cook one night and then come to the next game and trip over cords, right? A player that doesn't know whether he's left or right footed is kind of a worry to me. Now, talking about Arsenal, they come in 2s and 3s. I will say it one more time. 2s and 3s. Right. 2nd in the league.
Like I said.
3rd in the Champions League. 3 goals in the first leg. 2 goals in the second leg.
Stop. You're complicating the people here. Come on. You have to rewind that and hear what he said.
Let me rewind it again. They come in 2s and 3s.
You didn't hear him. Preach!
2nd in the league, 3rd in the Champions League. Against Real Madrid, first leg, 3 goals. Second leg, 2 goals.
I hope you didn't miss that again.
Right?
Anyways.
2 beautiful free kicks from Rice Baby. So beautiful, tastes better than jollof. 3 amazing players. Saka, Odegaard, and Rice Baby. And 3s. Now, previously, PSG have lost to Arsenal within the league.
You're right.
When they were doing the league proceedings and stuff. So they've lost. All right? So PSG will have to come with a different game plan than before to make sure they get victory over Arsenal. But knowing Arsenal and their motives right now, it's been a long time. And this is one of the things they have been working so hard over the last 3, 4, how many years to get to this point. I don't see them losing this now. I don't.
Right.
And like I said, they come in 2s and 3s. I feel like the first leg will be a 2-1 Arsenal defeat.
That's a fair result. They're at home, so I see that.
Arsenal winning, scoring 2 goals, PSG scoring 1.
Fair.
The second leg, this is where the 3 comes out.
Right.
They're going to get 3, and I don't see PSG not scoring, so I'm going to say they're going to score 1. So in aggregate, you have a 5-2. Arsenal proceeding to the finals. And that is my predictions. Now remember, 2s and 3s. Remember that. Man, it's going to be an amazing match.
You're reaching there. I agree. But I feel like 5-2 on aggregate with PSG. I don't know. Look, you're predicting that side, so I'll let that be. And hopefully, if this comes true, you're a prophet.
I'm a prophet.
You're a prophet.
Give me that crown, man. Prophecy.
That's what we're meant to, boys. We're prophecies. We prophesy matches. Anyways, so the final will be at the Allianz Arena in Germany, in Bayern Munich, a team that was supposed to make it to the final because it's at home, got knocked out,
man,
in dramatic fashion. Look, the final, it's gonna be something special.
It definitely will be.
I hope our predictions come true because that means the final will be a replay of the 2006 final, Arsenal versus Barcelona, and if that is written, then probably ends the same way. I can't predict the final. No. We'll predict the final in the next episode. So look, I can't predict, but Allianz Arena,
it's going to be amazing.
It's going to be magical.
You have Hansi Flick and Arteta going together. These are Pep's Like literally, these are Pep's disciples
Yes, you're right.
going head to head.
You're right.
Pep's disciples
The
going
Spanish and the
head to
German.
head. Man, this is going to be football poetry at its finest.
Football heritage.
Man, and I am excited. Hopefully, we can get to that point.
Yeah. So look, men to boys, we don't just watch the games, we prophesy.
That's very true. And you know what? With that, hit that like and subscribe button. And make sure you tell your cousins who's still wearing that Man United jersey to join the revolution. And we'll see you
In the finals.